Throughout the automotive history, cars have been getting progressively larger. With the constantly updated safety regulations and the never-ending capitalistic need for more, and more, it's not exactly a surprise. However, the worst offenders of that so far have been the pickup trucks. We used to have a reasonably sized F-150 that simply became a house on wheels at the end of the day. Then we had a need for a small, cheap pickup truck. We got the Ranger, and it simply got too large for its own sake within only a matter of a couple generations. And now we have this, the brand new Ford Maverick in its bare bones, most interesting base XL trim with the hybrid powertrain. The 2022 Ford Maverick, even in its bare bones base trim, is a good looking truck. We have some design cues from the F-150 and the Ranger, and because it is a base trim, everything that is not a white body panel is pretty much a black plastic or black rubber, but it is also meant as a cheap, value-oriented, small business in mind type of vehicle. We even have the silver steelies that I think look great and fit the design of this truck perfectly. I honestly have zero issues with the look of this truck on the outside. But arguably the most interesting aspect of this vehicle is this 2.5 liter inline-4 hybrid powertrain, producing 191 horsepower combined and 155 pound-feet of gas torque and 177 pound-feet of electric torque. This baby, powering only the front wheels, has been able to get me under 6 liters for 100 kilometers in a mixed cycle of decently spirited driving as well. Oh, but the Maverick somehow becomes even more interesting on the interior. And it's fascinating that for $26,000 Canadian, for a bare bones, in most cases company vehicle really, you are getting such a wild parade of different colors, textures, and general attention to detail. Throughout most of the truck, we get this blue textured plastic on the doors, on the upper dashboard. In the middle, we get the blue leatherette armrest as well, and that carries on throughout the entire interior. On top of that, we get this fascinating kind of sharp, angular, warping gray plastic in the dashboard, and we get it in the doors as well, and it's such a cool touch, and it's absolutely fascinating to look at around these vents as well. We also have this ribbed texture around the passenger airbag with the Ford branded bolts, and same story goes for the door panel. The door panels are actually, dare I say it, call them kind of a work of automotive art and ergonomic art. We have these Ford branded bolts as well. We have this kind of floating door handle. We have this warping, this angular warping of the gray plastic, and the sheer level of thought that went into the storage is absolutely fascinating to me. There's so much space. Most of the door panel is actually hollow for all sorts of items, with all sorts of nooks and crannies for a water bottle and a whole bunch of other items. And same goes for the center console as well. There is a space for your phone to lay down. There's a space for your phone to stand it up. There's a space for your miscellaneous items as well. More space, and quadruple more space for miscellaneous items. We also have this odd insert next to the infotainment, which I am personally not quite sure what it is for. We also have another little cubby up top here beyond the infotainment screen for more storage. Another thing that really stuck out to me about this interior is the integration of empty buttons. What I mean by that is, because this is a base trim, we have a lot of features missing, of course. Most notably, we're missing the cruise control, and in higher trims, In higher trims, we would get the adaptive cruise control. Here in the base trim, we actually don't get it. But you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell right away, and it wouldn't be nearly as obvious as in some other models, as for example Dodge, where it's glaringly obvious that there is a missing button and it's staring right at you every time you get in the interior. Here, for example, we have these two panels just below the steering wheel controls that look like they just could be simple design pieces. Here in the HVAC controls, we have a whole slew of buttons that you don't get in the base trim, but it's integrated so well that you wouldn't even be able to tell unless you directly compare this trim to a higher trim Maverick. You genuinely wouldn't be able to tell unless you look at a picture of a higher trim interior. Same situation here down below next to the electronic parking brake. We have the driving mode buttons, we have the traction control button, and we have the brake hold button as well. But we also are missing a whole row of buttons just down below here. But they added this slit in the middle, and this insert generally just does not look like it's a missing button. It's absolutely fascinating to me looking at this and not even realizing that these are missing buttons unless you look at a higher trim interior. And because this is the base trim, we do get a key, rightfully so. But what's truly bizarre about this experience is that when you insert a physical key into the ignition lock of the Maverick and you rotate the key, expected to hear a starter trying to power up the engine, right? Except that doesn't happen in the Maverick. You rotate the key and you get the Ford jingle because the passenger door is open because the camera is right there, as you might have already guessed. But instead, what you get is just the sound of fans coming on, and you get a message that says ready to drive. The Maverick starts up initially with just the electric motor, and when it needs to, it will power up the gas engine as well. Right now the car is on and we get the HVAC controls and everything is on. We have the infotainment on, and it's simply on electric power only. If I press the gas pedal, of course, then we start revving the gas engine, understandably. Now, when you look at Maverick's infotainment system, it is easy to hate on it at first glance. It is very basic, it's very crude looking, and a very lazy design of the infotainment menus with its pale blue background and the white icons. It also can be quite slow sometimes. However, and this is a big however, this infotainment has been flawless in its operation so far. Android Auto works flawlessly. It does exactly what I expect it to do, even in the regular Bluetooth connection mode without the Android Auto. It connects quickly. It does exactly what I want it to do. There's no mishaps. It doesn't do any strange things as some other infotainments do. It simply works flawlessly. I have not had any issue with this infotainment so far, except for it being a bit slow at times. And what's really important to remember is that you're getting all of this in the base, bare bones trim of an American truck. Ford, you have officially outdone yourself. Excellent job. I also want to draw your attention to this one little quirk that the Maverick has, specifically when it comes to the windshield wipers operation. When we go to turn on the windshield wipers, they will stop at a very specific spot. But when you go ahead to turn them off, they just go and just hide. They just retreat in their little pockets. And when you turn it on again, it will kind of stop at a specific position, and then when you turn it off, they just go right down out of sight. It's a cute little detail, but it's adorable nonetheless. And what makes the Maverick even better is just how usable the back seats are, especially for a truck. Now, I am 5'6", so I never actually struggle for space in any backseat or any car. But here I have tons of legroom, tons of headroom. I am very, very comfortable. It's very spacious. It's a very basic backseat, but this is also a bare bones base trim. It gets better in the higher trims. Oh, and we also get this adorable little window. Hi. But the Maverick is, of course, a pickup truck. So we get the manual tailgate. We get, for this one, we get the optional tonneau cover. And of course, a decently sized bed. I love this truck. But where the Maverick gets truly fascinating for me is behind the wheel. And I find it endlessly mesmerizing the way it uses the electric motor and its hybrid powertrain. Every time you let go of the throttle, every time you're braking, every time you're driving at a lower speed, you're not accelerating hard. Like for example, in stop and go traffic, you can actually go in stop and go traffic for a long time without actually engaging the gas engine. So the most fuel consuming part of driving, stop and go traffic in a big city, the electric motor takes over and it takes care of that, and you're not using any gas or barely using gas just when you need to accelerate a little bit. But this morning I also noticed a big flaw with the system as well, and it was quite upsetting to me personally. In this morning I started the car. It was a cold start. It wasn't quite freezing temperatures. It was maybe about 3 to 4 degrees Celsius, but I started the car and I was just gently driving in the city. I was still very sleepy this morning, and I didn't completely wake up, and I wasn't driving that fast, so I was taking it easy. And then I was stuck in stop and go traffic for maybe the first 20 minutes of the drive, and I, for the life of me, could not get warm in this car. When the electric motor was mainly engaged, the heater was not getting that hot. It was cranked up all the way, and I was blasting throughout the whole car. I even used the recirculating of the air inside the cabin button, but I just couldn't get warm. I was in my winter jacket, my hands were freezing. The electric motor, I think, was not allowing the heater to produce enough heat. However, when I got up on the highway, the speeds increased, and the gas engine kicked in, and then it finally gave me the heat that I needed. But for the first 20 to 30 minutes of the drive, tragically so, I was very cold and I could not get warm. And it wasn't even freezing temperature. So in winter, I can definitely see how that could be a problem. Another issue I have with the Maverick's driving experience is the suspension. It's not exactly a cushy ride. It's not exactly soft. And it doesn't soak up the bumps the way you'd want it to, or it doesn't soak up the bumps the way you'd want a full-size truck to do. And it's not a full-size truck. In fact, this is a unibody construction, meaning that it's not a body-on-frame as a truck usually would be. And that kind of, in a way, makes the Maverick drive more like a crossover or a car, even, especially with the kind of the bumpiness of the suspension. It feels more like a large car than an actual truck, which I do like. I do thoroughly enjoy that. And that brings me to a point of city driving it. I genuinely enjoyed driving it in the city. It is just large enough to be very spacious, but it also is not large enough to be particularly inconvenient in the city. Parking in the city, driving it on smaller city streets, I had no issues with it. And because it feels more like a car than an actual truck, it was also more enjoyable to drive in the city as well. When it comes to acceleration, it is perfectly adequate. On the highway, I never felt like I needed more power. To overtake, to merge, it is 100% acceptable power. One smaller gripe that I have with the Maverick as well is the kind of lack of refinement of the drivetrain and the sounds that it makes. It is a pretty loud drivetrain overall, including the electric motor. The electric motor is, you can really hear it from the inside and from the outside when you're slowly driving it in the parking lot. It is very much audible. And then the gas engine, well, it's pretty loud, and you can also hear that switch. It is very, very noticeable. I mean, to be fair, it is a work truck, right? But it's something to keep in mind. Also, when you're braking, there's a brake coach that kind of tells you how much, what's the percentage of the energy that you've returned through the regenerative braking. And it's quite interesting that when you press the brake pedal, you feel that electric motor vibration of the regenerative braking process through the brake pedal. It is a very odd experience. It's a very odd feeling, and you understand exactly what's happening, which is also kind of cool, but at the same time, it can be unnerving to somebody who just got in. It kind of feels like bad brakes. You know, it feels like when the brake pad is just grinding against the rotor at this point. You know, if you've ever had a brake pad get to that point, that's kind of what it feels like, except it sounds like an electric motor whirring and using that regenerative braking energy to recharge the battery. And another thing about the regenerative braking is that sometimes when you press the brake pedal, the brakes alongside with the electric motor, of course, can bite a little harder than you expect it to. So you're actually slowing down a lot faster than you would imagine to, and you just want to make sure that you don't get rear-ended. And when you come to a full stop, say in a parking lot, sometimes it feels a bit too abrupt, but all of that kind of ties into the lack of refinement of the drive chain. But the good news is that in the Maverick standard, we get a lot of cool technology. We get the blind spot monitoring, we get the rear cross traffic braking, we also get the lane keep assist, which works pretty well on the highway. I've tested out and I don't have any complaints at all. But really, what's kind of upsetting is that we don't actually get the cruise control at all. The higher trims get the adaptive cruise control, but the base trim doesn't even get a regular cruise control, which is it's just not something you would expect from a brand new car in 2022. When it comes to the seating position, it's good. It's very, very adjustable, but at the same time, the seats are not the most comfortable. We get zero lumbar support, so they're not the most comfortable seats for long journeys, I'm assuming. But when it comes to just putting around in traffic, putting around in the city, perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable. And now that my day with the Maverick is coming to an end, I want to say that I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. I actually really like this truck. And as a person that is not a truck person, I love it because it doesn't drive like a truck. It drives more like a crossover or a car. I love the fuel economy. I don't really care that it's front-wheel drive. In winter, it might be more of an issue, but at the same time, if you treat it like a regular front-wheel drive crossover, I think you would be perfectly fine. As long as you don't treat it like a rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive or a 4x4 truck, I think you'll be perfectly fine. And I absolutely love how much character the Maverick has. This interior, all the attention to details, all the fun little bits and quirks. There's so much to look at. And you can spend quite a long time just exploring the truck and its interior, and it will take you quite a while before you stop noticing new things, or you stop discovering new little tidbits about it. I think Ford made an absolutely brilliant move with the Maverick, and just like with the Mustang, Ford was a trendsetter in 2022. Ford set another trend with the Maverick. The only real competition to the Maverick is the Hyundai Santa Cruz, but I'm sure there's more to follow from Chevy and from Dodge. I'm sure we will see more of these little trucks, and I think it's an awesome thing because we need more small trucks. We don't need houses on wheels. We don't need these giant unwieldy machines. We need something like this. And for a person who is not really a truck person like that, I love this truck because this is genuinely a livable package for somebody who doesn't need a full-size truck or somebody who never even considered a truck. This drives like a crossover. I love it. It gets incredible fuel economy. We have the other engine option, the 2-liter EcoBoost with more power, more torque, and it's all-wheel drive. But realistically, I think this is the way to get a Maverick. This is truly a unicorn on the market right now, I think. And it is unfortunate, truly, it is unfortunate that there is no hybrid all-wheel drive option. But even in the front-wheel drive, this is a very livable and very pleasant value package, and you get a lot for your money. And when you go up the trims, the interior gets even more interesting. And obviously you get all the other tech features as well, like the adaptive cruise control that you might want, definitely. But to wrap up the video, I do want to say that the 2022 Ford Maverick Hybrid is an absolute success. It is an absolute gem of a little truck. If you're curious about it, if you're thinking whether you should buy it or not, buy it. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And I will see you in the next one. Drive safe, everyone.